Hi, this is Graham and I do hope everyone's having a great day. And welcome to this number 6 in this tutorial series covering the Panasonic Lumix FZ200. In today's video I want to look at shooting flash pictures with the FZ200. I'll be looking at both the internal flash unit and using external flashes with this camera. We'll be looking at wired connections and wireless connections so that you can get more creative with your flash photography. Let's begin by looking at shooting with the internal flash unit. You're probably aware that you use the internal flash unit if you're at parties and functions, but also aware that sometimes the results aren't that good. You tend to end up with very dark shadows behind your subjects and less than flattering light. In this video I want to try and show you some ways of overcoming those by using the internal flash and a few modifications to it to give you those better results. But first of all, if you are going to use the internal flash, you enable it by just sliding the side switch to the forward position, and that releases the spring-loaded Cobra head flash unit. Once it's unlatched, the camera knows to charge the flash circuit. But also, if you are going to use the internal flash, and especially at wide angle settings, you must remove the lens hood, as the light from the flash is shaded by the upper part of the petal, and you'll end up with shadowing on the lower part of your images. So first of all, remove your lens hood and store that away in a safe place, and then you won't have any shadowing on wide angle pictures. In the intelligent auto mode, the flash is auto in its intelligent state. So if it's shooting a general picture, it will use intelligent auto flash, and if it spots a portrait mode, it will change to automatic flash with red eye reduction to reduce the number of red eyes that you see in your pictures. I'm not going to cover flash in intelligent auto because there's not very much you can set up, but what I will do is concentrate on flash in the P, A, S and M modes. Particularly in the M mode, you can actually balance flash to the daylight settings and achieve some quite nicely balanced pictures between sunlight and flash fill-in, such as I'm showing you here on these flowers, where I've tried to balance the external sunlight with the power of an external flash to create a little bit more modelling. To begin with, I'm going to shoot a self-portrait using the internal flash in just the straightforward flash mode without red eye reduction. I'm going to be the subject as I haven't got any models that will pose for me, so you'll have to get used to seeing my face in this series of videos, unfortunately. Right, let's begin. Let's look how to set up the flash first of all in the P, A, S or M mode and see what functions you have available to you. You'll notice whilst the flash head is down, you have the disable flash icon, and it means that even in the automatic mode, this camera won't pop up the flash and embarrass you in situations where flash is prohibited. To enable the flash, you have to release the catch and allow the head to rise. I'm going to shoot this self-portrait. I'm going to use aperture priority mode. I've got the camera set to f6.3 and I've got the ISO set to 100. I've also enabled the face detection mode so the camera will focus on me when I'm actually going to take this picture. At the moment I've got the camera set to a standard profile, and I'm going to enable the flash by now raising the flash head, and you'll notice that the flash symbol appears with a little plus to it. The plus means that I've got some exposure value compensation set on the flash, and if I just go into the menu set menu and we go down to the page which shows you the flash, which is on page 5, you'll notice I've got plus 1/3 set, and this camera gives you the opportunity to add or subtract up to 2 EV flash power. So we'll set that back to the default of 0 to begin the test. While we're here in this menu, we'll look at the flash menu, and if you cursor to the right, you have the automatic mode with red eye reduction, force flash on, or the slow sync shutter with red eye reduction. The force flash on is useful if you want to make the flash fire even in daylight, and the slow sync shutter is ideal if you want to take pictures at night time and want to include some of the ambience. So this allows the camera to take a picture using the ambient light first of all and then fire the flash secondary. So I'm going to set up for straightforward automatic flash, and I'm going to ensure that red eye reduction is turned off, and we go set up for the portrait. So I'll set up the camera to use a 10-second self timer, and it means that I can get from behind the camera to in front of the camera, and we can see how the camera performs with direct flash. I'll now start the self timer and jump in front of the camera. just review that, you can see we've got ISO 100, f6.3 and with a flash setting of 1/60th of a second, which this camera will set once you're into the flash mode. In the automatic mode, the camera first fires a pre-flash, and then that flash determines the exposure for the main flash, which happens second. If we switch on red eye reduction, the camera fires a pre-flash with a longer intensity, and the idea being that that allows the pupils to close, and thus the light from the back of the eye and all the blood vessels isn't reflected back down into the camera lens. So I'll enable the red eye reduction mode now, and we can see the effect on the picture. To do that, we can go back into the quick menu and cursor down into the menu for setting flash, and I'll enable the automatic flash with red eye reduction. And again, I'll set the self timer to 10 seconds so that I can get in front of the camera, and we should see a longer pre-flash. Direct on-camera flash doesn't give the best possible modelling. It gives a very sharp shadow behind your subject and creates very flat looking lighting on your subject. To try and diffuse that light so that you don't have such an intense point light source, you can wrap around the flash head a piece of greaseproof paper or a single ply of kitchen roll, and that acts to soften down the flash. And what I've created here is just a cardboard tube with a piece of greaseproof paper which I've taped to the inside, and that just fits over the flash head, and it allows the flash to fire through the cardboard tube with a single piece of the greaseproof paper. You can modify this however you like. Some people just use an elastic band to attach the greaseproof paper or kitchen roll around the flash head, or you can modify again this cardboard tube to something a little bit more elaborate and paint it black, and that would improve the aesthetics of it. But I'm now going to take a shot using this diffuser just to show you the effect compared to the standard flash mode. So this shot will be in the red eye reduction mode again, and again I'm going to set up the 10-second timer to allow me to get in front of the camera, and this shot is with the diffuser over the flash. So we've seen by just adding a simple layer of diffusion to the flash, we create a much softer light source. We can also use a piece of silver reflector to bounce the flash from the flash unit to the ceiling, and use the ceiling as the overhead light source to create an even more pleasing effect with the flashlight. The Cobra head on the FZ200 doesn't allow you to point it upwards, but if you use a piece of silver reflected foil or some silver paper or kitchen foil glued onto a piece of cardboard, and you just make a small attachment which will allow the light to come from the flash at an angle of about 45 degrees. And again, you can attach this by a variety of means. I'm just using a little piece of sellotape just to hold it in position while we take this photograph. It's just to demonstrate the effect that the light coming from the flash comes out at 45 degrees and then bounces up to the ceiling to create a much larger area for the flash to illuminate the subject. So again, I'll set up for a self-portrait and we can see the effect of that. Because we're bouncing the light from the ceiling now, the power of the flash is very much reduced, so I've reduced the aperture to compensate for that. So I'm now using an aperture of f4 rather than f6.3. So I'll set up first of all for our 10-second shot, and we'll just check this exposure. We'll just check the value of the exposure. So you can see we've got an exposure of 1/60th of a second at f4, and the exposure doesn't look too bad. It's much softer modelling, and if we look at this picture on the computer, you can see it's much better than the direct on flash result. A slight modification to this design is to punch a 6mm or 1/4 inch hole in line with where the flash exits the Cobra head, so you get the best of both the reflective and direct flash. By experimentation, I found that 1/4 inch does give the correct balance between the amount of direct flash and the amount of ambient flash, but it will depend on the height of the ceiling, so some experimentation might be necessary. But it does give you a pleasing effect from the internal flash unit, as illustrated by this picture now. So those are some options for using the internal flash unit of the FZ200. I now want to look at using the external flash units with the FZ200, and the first one I want to consider is actually a dedicated flash gun, dedicated for the Panasonic systems of cameras. This one is actually the Olympus FL36, and it's hot shoe compatible with Panasonic cameras. So the full ITTL functions of this flash gun will work when it's attached to the FZ200 hot shoe. If you're purchasing an external flash gun and want it to maintain the ITTL capabilities, then make sure you get one that's Panasonic compatible. There are Nissan and Olympus units which do fit the camera, so make sure you do get the Panasonic hot shoe mount compatible device. Again, it just slides onto the top of the camera, and the connectivity from the camera hot shoe goes through the connections onto the back of the flash unit to enable things like the zoom to respond to the zoom setting of the lens, and actually the flash power is determined from the camera to the flash unit via the communications circuit. When you're attaching an external flash unit to the camera, it's better to ensure that the flash unit is first of all off before sliding it onto the hot shoe and then powering up the unit. So again, it just slips onto the hot shoe of the camera. It has a locking collar so that it locks securely down to the camera, and then you can turn on the flash unit and you're ready to take pictures. The advantage of the external flash unit is the fact that you're slightly higher than the internal flash unit head, so the on-camera access is slightly different, so the chances of reducing red eye are a little bit more improved. But also you've got the facilities now of a high power flash gun, which does give you the facility to be able to bounce this unit off the ceiling without having to resort to pieces of card or silver foil to redirect that flash unit up. This unit also has a swivel operation, so you can actually swivel it round to enable you to bounce and shoot from a side wall if you wanted to create some lighting effects by shooting from a white wall close to your subject. So this is the FL36 flash unit on the Panasonic FZ200. To turn on the unit, it's just a case of pressing the power button and holding that for a second while the flash unit initializes. And you can see that it comes up with the distance that the flash is enabled. That's 3.3 to 35.4 feet. So it responds to the camera within the range of 12mm to 42mm. I've set this up for TTL, which is using the camera's exposure to calculate the flash power, and again we'll take a picture to look at the result from this setting. I'm now going to set the camera up to do a bounce flash portrait using the ceiling to bounce the flash back down. Once you set this flash head to any angle more than 0 degrees, you lose the zoom control as the flash power is directed up to the ceiling and the flash unit computes the new f-stop. So if I aim the flash unit to the ceiling, we're still in TTL auto mode, so when the camera determines the correct exposure, it will transfer that through to the flash unit and create the correct effect. With a dedicated flash, you've got no worries about connectivity. Alternatively, you might be able to use external guns from other manufacturers. They may not have the hot shoe capability, but you will get the manual power facility of the gun. So for example, you may be able to use a Nikon SB unit and have the facility to use the manual power settings. As an example of mounting an external flash gun that doesn't have direct hot shoe capability, I've mounted this Minolta 4000 flash unit. It's an old flash unit. It has a low trigger voltage of about 6 volts, and that's important if you are going to attach other types of flash unit to the camera. When you do attach non-compatible flash units to the camera, it's worth having a look at this website that I'm posting up here to actually look at the trigger voltage. If the trigger voltage for your flash unit is rated at 9 volts or less, then you're probably okay to use that flash unit on the camera. Some of the older flash units have very high trigger voltages, as the trigger voltage was derived from the primary flash circuit. For example, this flash that I'm showing you now has a flash trigger circuit of about 300 volts. So mounting that on the camera would actually destroy the output circuit of the flash unit. So it's always best to look at the trigger voltage of any flash unit before you attach it to your FZ200. This one's okay. It has a very low flash trigger voltage, and I can use it in the manual power mode. I don't get TTL compatibility, so there's no communication from the camera to the flash unit apart from the flash ready symbol. So when the flash fires, the camera can't expose again until the flash is charged up, but I do get the manual flash power capability and again a lovely bounce and swivel head unit on the 4000 AF. You've got no manual control of these flash guns. This one just has a guide number, and you divide the guide number by the distance from your subject to the flash for the particular ISO you want to use, and you'll be given an aperture to set the camera to. So it's a very manual operated process, but it does give you the facility of some creative flash photography. Another method of connecting those high power guns are the optical triggers, and I have a variety of them. Some are triggered by the PC connection and others are connected by the hot shoe. So it's a case of just experimenting around with the different flash guns as to which works better for you. There is another way of attaching the flash unit to the camera, and that's by the use of a dedicated extension cable. This one is fully hot shoe compatible between the hot shoe of the camera and the hot shoe of the dedicated flash unit. It does allow you to move the flash off of the camera to get it into a position for better modelling, say 45 degrees high and 45 degrees to your subject, to create some nice modelling effect. It maintains all the functions of the camera from ITTL, so it's an ideal combination if you want to use this gun for plants and insects, where you want to get some modelling and some high-speed flash pictures as well. By use of these remote wireless flash units, you can control your external flash gun and place it on another tripod or a lighting stand to give you some creative relief modelling. So you can set this light stand to give a flash position of 45 degrees to the subject and 45 degrees above it, and you create some natural sunlight type modelling. So on a light stand and with the remote flash trigger, I'm going to set up for another cell portrait, and just to see the effect of the creative modelling using that lighting setup. So I have the camera set up now with the trigger unit on the hot shoe, and on the light stand I have the receiver with the Minolta 4000 flash unit attached, and it's set about 45 degrees to me and 45 degrees above. So I'm going to set the self timer for again 10 seconds, and we'll take this picture and have a look at the exposure. So you can see that the image has now created the light to dark shadow area, and I'm no a lighting expert with portraiture, but again the shadow should be a little bit further down and showing a triangular light section here. To reduce the contrast on this side, you can either use a white card to bounce some light back in, or a white reflector, or you could actually use a secondary fill flash. And that's what I'll do now. I'll include a secondary flash on this side with much lower power rating, just to add some fill light back into these shadows. So for the second shot, I've installed another wireless receiver on another flash unit, and I've reduced the power to about a 16th power level. So you can see the result of adding the second flash unit was to actually reduce the contrast of the shadows on the left hand side, and you can vary the power to vary the amount of contrast between the highlight and shadow area of your portrait. If you're using these external flash guns on a lighting stand, you can use a nylon umbrella to actually fire the flash through to give an even softer effect. So by placing this in front of the flash unit and directing the light back onto your subject, you create a much more diffuse light source. Thin nylon umbrellas, the idea is to shoot the flash through them, as they lose too much power trying to reflect back out. If you wanted a higher reflective umbrella, you would go for one of the silver reflective or gold reflective umbrellas, and they bounce back a lot more of the power. So I'm going to set this up to use as a shoot through device, and we'll see the softening effect of having a much more wider light source than just the flash head alone. So now an image taken with the shoot through nylon umbrella, again on a 45 degree axis to me and 45 degrees above, using the same 4000 AF flash unit, and I'm not using the fill flash to begin with. So let's set up to take that image and have a look at that one. You can see we've got some softer modelling as a result of using a wider diffused area. Ideally I should probably just up the flash power a little bit, but for the purpose of the demonstration I'm just going to leave that as it is. I'll now switch on the fill light and we can have a look at the result by adding a little bit of fill to the shadow areas. So that's image 1070555 using the 45° flash Brolly and the fill. For the next shot I will use a silver reflector umbrella just to cast some stronger shadows, and I'll use the fill light to balance that. If you're shooting at a party or event and want to use on-camera flash, then I'd suggest you got yourself a L flash bracket. These allow you to move the flash to a position at the side of the camera so the flash isn't on the optical axis, and it reduces the amount of red eye, and it also gives you a little bit of relief modelling as well, especially if you use it with a softened head like this to create some softer shadows. Well, that's it for this video. Hope you found that interesting. In my next video we were looking at some of the advanced features of the SZ200 and covering off some of the areas that we only touched briefly on in each of these 6 tutorials. So if there's any areas that you particularly want to see refreshed, if you just drop me a note in the messages below, then I'll consider them for the inclusion into the next video. So until then, thanks again for watching, and of course if you don't already subscribe to the channel, please consider doing so. So until the next video, it's Graham saying thanks again for watching and bye for now.